We begin tonight with news breaking out of Minneapolis. There are so many senseless shootings in America, it can almost become horribly easy to get numb to them. But what happened today was so diabolical, it will be hard to forget. It happened during a mass at a Catholic school for pre-K through 8th grade kids, just 2 days into the new school year. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. Police tonight are investigating why a shooter in his early 20s, dressed in black, opened fire through the stained glass windows of the school's church, spraying bullets at children as they sat and prayed in pews. 2 of those children are dead tonight and more than a dozen are hurt. The shooter then turned the gun on himself, killing himself and leaving behind a disturbing manifesto. It all happened at around 8:30 local time this morning at Annunciation Catholic Church. It's a private school with around 390 students. Those 2 children who died were only 8 and 10 years old. 17 other people were injured in the shooting, 14 of them children, at least one of them as young as 6. All of them are expected tonight to survive. Just yesterday, these kids were celebrating the start of a new school year, and now they're dealing with unfathomable tragedy. And the rest of us are left asking and wondering what would drive someone to do something so horrific. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara gave some insight into that in an update late this afternoon.
The coward that shot these victims took his own life in the rear of the church. That coward has been identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman. No prior criminal history. As to the weapons used to perpetrate this horrific attack, there was a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. All 3 had been lawfully purchased by the shooter. At this stage, we believe that the shooter had acted alone. There is no indication of other suspects.
As you just heard, the gunman was identified as Robin Westman, but was born Robert Westman and changed his name to Robin when he was 17 years old. The police chief also confirmed the existence of that written manifesto that the gunman also recorded on video and then uploaded online.
We're also aware of a manifesto that the shooter had timed to be released on YouTube. This manifesto appeared to show him at the scene and included some disturbing writings. That content has since been taken down with the assistance of the FBI, and it now remains under active review by our investigators.
We are starting, however, to get images from what we believe to be that recording, and they reveal some very sick and disturbing messages. He wrote, "Kill Donald Trump" on a rifle magazine. In another image, you see the words, "For the children," and in another, "Where is your God?" And then we get a shot of the so-called manifesto itself. Part of it says, "I love you all. I will remember you. Pray for the victims and their families." He goes on to say, "I am not well. I'm in pain. I am haunted by these thoughts that do not go away. I've been waiting to do this." He writes, "P.S. I wouldn't recommend any of you to read my journals unless you really want to, but be warned." There are reports he had ties to this school. The New York Times is reporting that the gunman went there and graduated from 8th grade there, and that his mother used to work at the school. Joining me right now is retired Sheriff Rich Stanek. He was the Minnesota police officer for 35 years and was born and raised in this community. Also joining us is Tracy Walder, a former CIA officer and FBI special agent, now a NewsNation national security contributor. Thank you both for being here. Tracy, what do you make of this manifesto? The police chief said it showed video of the shooter at the scene, so he was recording himself in that parking lot. We have screenshots saying, "I'm not well. I've been waiting a long time to do this." It's quite extensive.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth. Really, what I make of this is obviously it speaks to the pre-planned nature, of this. Like, clearly, this individual had put a lot of thought and effort into obviously legally acquiring these weapons, writing this manifesto, and then timing that video. But I think what's going to be really critical, at least for the FBI, also for local law enforcement as well, is really going through that manifesto as well as his online activity to see where these ideas came from. If you notice on some of them, he has written in Cyrillic. And I think that's really key there in looking at some of these other investigations and individuals who've been radicalized on these chat rooms.
Rich, this is very prolific stuff. We're just showing a tiny part of it. This young man must have been clearly mentally ill to anybody in his vicinity.
You know, I had a chance earlier this morning to see that that video. It was on X. I watched it about 11 minutes long. It was disturbing, to say the least. Like Tracy said, this attack was well planned out. He was armed to the hilt. He took all the precautions and preparatory steps that one would take to do something like this. And then you've got 2 young kids dead, 14 other kids injured by gunfire, 3 senior citizens who were in the church as well injured by gunfire. You know, where does it stop?
3 guns, it feels like overkill. Victims report that the shooting went on for 2 full minutes. Rich.
You know, it went on for 2 full minutes, but in the manifesto, in the video you just mentioned, he also talks about a revolver that he kept for himself. This was for him. Should something go awry, or at the end of this, he takes his own life. That's what he indicated he was going to use. So he fully planned on not walking away from this, doing as much damage and carnage as he did. And damage and carnage he did do. I feel bad for the parents and the students. You already know this. I grew up in this community. I spent 40 years as a police officer, both an elected sheriff and a Minneapolis police officer and commissioner of public safety. We've all seen horrific events time and time again, but you will never, ever get over something like this. This cuts right to the core of the community, right to the core.
Tracy, one of the things they found in this shooter's possession was a diagram of a church, an outline of a church. It appears to be this particular Annunciation church. And as we said, there are reports that he went to this church school, that his mother used to work at this school, the Annunciation school. That's got to be a starting point for a motive. I mean, why this school? He went there. His mom worked there.
You're absolutely right, Elizabeth. And I cannot even imagine what Rich and the community, quite frankly, are going through. This is absolutely incredible and horrific. But I think, too, in terms of the church itself, I'm not certain that the motive was the school. Rather, it could have been a lot of what was going on in his head and in his life. However, this may have been where he felt it was the most convenient, most comfortable for him to inflict this amount of damage. And in my opinion, he had to have at least known what the schedule of the school was like and that they had mass there at this time. After I was an FBI agent, I taught actually at a Catholic school. And this is where the entirety of the school body is together at this time. And so he knew full well what he was doing.
Rich, he also took steps to prevent anybody from escaping. I mean, this was not an impulsive act. The police chief talked about that late this afternoon. All evidence shows that it was carefully planned. He brought not only the 3 guns, he brought planks of wood that he used to put through the doorknobs to barricade the church doors so that those children couldn't get out. He also brought smoke canisters. This was obviously very well planned.
Right, exactly what we said. He had thought about this for a long time. He had planned it out, probably visited the site at least once, if not multiple times, knew exactly what he was doing, how he was going to do it, and how this was going to end. The fact that he brought pieces of 2x4 wood to barricade the doors so those kids could not get out of the church, or anyone else to get out of the church, whether to confront him or just escape the gunfire, speaks volumes, just volumes. And, you know, I don't want to go unnoticed. This was the 4th deadly shooting in Minneapolis in less than 24 hours. 5 people killed in 24 hours, 25 people wounded by gunfire. Just, 2 miles away, 20 hours before, there were 6, 7 people shot. A guy got out of a car in the middle of the day, 1:30 in the afternoon, a busy intersection, and unloaded 30 plus rounds from a semi-automatic rifle at people on the street. people got to ask what is going on and who's responsible. Law enforcement is going to find out through their investigation, what the motive was and how this came about to be, but it's not going to change the end result. We can do better. We must do better as a community. That's where this is at.
Tracy, the children reportedly say, they've been through, like all kids, sadly, in this country, because of all the school shootings, they've been through active shooter drills. But there have never been any active shooter drills inside their church. A failure to imagine that anything like this could happen in their own church. So many of the students had no idea what to do once the gunfire began. They were diving under the pews, but they really didn't know what to do.
It's obviously horrific. At least at public schools, obviously we are trained in this kind of response. And yes, you are correct. Sometimes these churches or religious facilities are not connected necessarily to the school, so they don't have these secondary plans in place. But also, really, to your point and to Rich's point earlier, if these children had wanted to flee, there is nowhere that they could have gone. And that is what is so horrific about this in terms of the pre-planning. But really, those children, the teachers, they are heroes. Teachers get into this profession to teach, not work in a war zone. And this is just incredibly sad.
Rich, the gunman also, he shot through the church's stained glass windows. I mean, that's the other part of this story here, is that, again, schools now in this country are largely, they have strict security protocols. The doors are locked. Strangers can't just walk in. Often there are security guards patrolling the grounds. But he didn't even enter this church. He shot through the window.
He attacked the most vulnerable population, that being our kids. He attacked in one of the most vulnerable places, a church, a place of worship, someplace that it just doesn't happen. You don't see this every day in America, and now it's happened in Minneapolis. I told folks earlier today, I am tired of Minneapolis being on the news for stories like this. We are so much better than this, and I hope, afterwards people learn lessons learned about what happened, but additional precautions need to be taken. Preparation, response, all that. I thought law enforcement did a very nice job in terms of their response, but by the time they got there, it was over in 2 minutes with 17 people shot, 2 dead, and the carnage and the results that we saw.
Yeah, this is a trauma that will live forever in these children. And again, all these kids were there for the beginning of the school year, the mass that marks the start of the school year. Every single student at that school was in attendance, along with members of the community. 3 of the victims are senior citizens in their 80s who were simply going to morning mass. They too victims of this gunman. All right, thank you both, Rich Stanek and Tracy Walder, for lending us your expertise. Really appreciate it. All right, coming up for us, we continue with the breaking news in Minneapolis. When we come back, we'll speak to the chaplain who met with parents and students at the reunification point. He'll tell us what he saw and heard in those moments. Plus, we're going to go live to the White House, where Washington is reacting to this message written on the gunman's rifle magazine, "Kill Donald Trump." Our coverage continues. Stay with us.
Principal DeVore spoke about prayer. Certainly that the bell in the Catholic Church is always a call to prayer, and so it's a reminder for us, for sure, to be praying.
That was the bell, the church bell, tolling as the Reverend was giving a news conference, and he noted there that that's our cue to continue to pray. This all happened hours after a shooter opened fire during the first mass of the academic year at the Annunciation School in Minneapolis. 2 children, ages 8 and 10, were killed while sitting in their church pews praying. More than a dozen others were hurt. Pope Leo actually sent his condolences to those affected and, in a telegram, offered his sympathy to the families who are now grieving the unimaginable, the loss of a child. Pope Leo has a personal connection to Minneapolis. He did hospital training there. Archbishop Bernard Hebda of St. Paul in Minneapolis got the message personally and says these messages of support give him hope in the face of this terrible tragedy.
Already today, I've been receiving messages from all over our country promising prayers, and I think it's the prayers of the feet as well, Principal. That is, for me, is a source of hope, just as we see families stepping forward to help those who have been impacted by this terrible tragedy.
The Minnesota Council of Churches also shared a statement of support. There are few sights more beautiful than children lifting their voices in prayer together, the statement reads. In those sacred moments full of quiet hope and nervous anticipation for a new school year, they are talking with God in innocence and trust. But that hope and that innocence and that trust were shattered this morning when bullets flew through the church windows and toward the children praying inside. Joining us now is Interfaith Chaplain Howard Dotson. He was at Annunciation Church this morning where the students were meeting back up with their parents. It's really great to have you here. You got to the school at around 9:15 in the morning, so just, less than an hour after the shooting. What did you see? What did you hear?
It was really hard to see the tears of the moms, worrying, not knowing if their kid was in the hospital or if they were going to be reunited. And we took out art supplies and made art circles for the kids so they could have something to do to process their feelings, and mom could have a moment to process herself. And there's a canine dog that came in, and then I met with the teachers, and one of the teachers shared with me that when they were leaving from the chapel to the gymnasium, she led them in this song. Sorry. Led us in the song. And so the music and the arts are effective expressive therapies, helping people cope with trauma.
Yeah, that will be surely valuable in the days, weeks, and months to come. But in this moment, this morning, the high emotion and near panic of parents, trying to find their child and make sure their child is okay. I can't even who was more upset and more worried, the parents or the kids?
Yeah, the kids are in shock, but the moms are in tears.
Yeah.
And the relief when they're reunited. And I told the kids, God's hedge of protection is over you. God is protecting your heart and mind. God is a great physician, and he's with your classmates right now who are being treated at the hospital.
How are these kids going to process what they witnessed, what they experienced?
Part of it is your brain protects yourself, and you take it in doses because you can't process it all at once. But the acute stress disorder is for the first 3 months. And you get the coping skills so they don't have PTSD in 3 months. So we have grief counseling resources in St. Paul and Eden Prairie. And I told the teachers, when you bring the kids back together, sing the same song they sang. So music and art are accessible tools in a time of trauma recovery.
And what did you say to the parents, especially the moms who were crying and in tears? How did you calm them?
I hugged them. A lot of hugs. That that non-anxious presence, that it's going to be okay. And I told the moms that you're going to have crime victim reparations when your kids go to therapy. The crime victim reparation is going to pay for your kids' therapy.
I don't know if you've heard the news that the FBI is investigating this shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. That is what the FBI Director, Kash Patel, is saying. We did not get confirmation of this from the police chief of Minneapolis, but to have the FBI Director say that Catholics were targeted today, what does that mean to you?
There's a personal connection. The gunman had a family connection to the school. This looks more like a personal vendetta than something just against Catholics.
So you think it was there because either something with his mom formerly working there, he himself reportedly actually went there as a child as
Right.
well. You think it was more targeted because of that personal connection and not because toward Catholics in general. I'm just curious, one last question. You know, you say that chaplains like yourself offering comfort in traumatic times like these can be, I think you called it psychological first aid. It's an important service to the community there.
I've been asking for more clergy to volunteer to be police chaplains and fire chaplains, because when you have a mass casualty like this, you need all the chaplains you can have on the scene.
You sure do. I really appreciate it.
260, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Howard Dotson, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for jumping into action and providing comfort where you could this morning in a time of great trauma. My next guest lives near Annunciation Catholic Church and heard the shots being fired this morning. Bill Bieneman is on the phone. Bill, thanks for joining us. Tell me, you live 2 blocks from the school. You heard the shots. How many of them were there?
Okay, well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. So we live probably about 3 city blocks away. We've gone to that church for 20 plus years. My daughter went through K through 8. So when I was on a business conference call at my house, and our windows were open. It's a beautiful day. And I've grown up hunting and all that, so I'm very familiar with gunfire. So to answer your question, I'm only guessing, but I would say, I don't know, 30 to 80 rounds, somewhere around there. It's and here again, I may be off by a minute or so, but I would say 3 or 4 minutes of constant firing.
Constant firing. It was just nonstop?
Yeah, well, you know, there would be, so anybody out there, so a magazine, so I understand the shooter had a long gun, a rifle, like a M4 or M16 or something like that, semi-automatic. He had a shotgun and a pistol, as I understand. So it was a combination of those 3. And when you have a magazine, so they fire in 3-shot bursts. Yes, it was, you know, a little interruption in between, but I couldn't believe it. So I dropped the call. I got in my vehicle and went over to the church probably less than 10 minutes after the shooting happened. There was already a massive amount of law enforcement there. They were already putting the yellow tape, you know, border where they didn't want you to go. I ended up speaking with a young man who was a survivor. He described the horror that was going on in there. He said the bullets were so close that the wood chips from the bullets going through the pews were falling on his face. So just unbelievable. We're very good friends. Our next door neighbor, sister is a teacher there of the I believe of the 2 fatalities of the children. So it's very personal to many of us around here, and this is a very nice area. It's I would say upper middle class. You know, nobody ever thought something like this could happen.
Yeah, tell me, that's a shocking story that the boy told you, that chips of wood from the bullets were falling on their face, chips of wood that were caused by the bullets going through the wooden pews. Were people panicked when you got there? I must imagine they were.
So this gentleman wasn't a little boy. This gentleman was about 30 years old.
Okay.
And he described to me that he goes to church every day. He usually goes to the Basilica downtown. He just happened to go to this Mass. This Mass happens once a year. It's the Mass when all of the children, the faculty, and some parents go to this Mass. So the church, I'm guessing, maybe holds 400 plus people, and they were all in there. So he described to me that, you know, it looked like a regular Sunday Mass, and then exactly what transpired with the rounds going through the pews and all of that. So
was this Mass known? Was this sort of a known sort of infamous annual tradition for Annunciation Church to have the start of the school year mass? I'm asking because it sounds like the gunman obviously knew and planned this on this day.
I think you're correct. My daughter, who went to school there, kindergarten through eighth, described that this mass used to take place on Thursdays. I actually went to this mass many years ago, and I think you are correct in that this gunman was friends with our next door neighbor's son, somewhat, kind of friends, and so he would have been aware of this mass.
And it was packed. The church was packed today because of the marking of the new school year. There's about 390 children in that pre-K through 8th grade school. They were all there, along with members of the community.
That is correct. I don't know the exact numbers, but that is correct. I don't know what the official attendance is, but the church can absolutely hold what you just described, plus the faculty and parents.
You say you've gone to that church before. Is there? I mean, I'm guessing there's not, but is there any security around it of any kind?
So what I've learned is, yes, we've gone to that church for 20 years, so we know many of the parishioners and the faculty and all that. So what I understand is that the shooter shot from outside the building.
Yes, he did. He fired through a window.
Yeah, so this happened in the church, and if anybody knows anything about Catholic churches, they're very welcoming, and anybody from the public can walk in there. So
right.
I do know the school has very, actually, quite frankly, good security. You cannot get into that school without actually 2 security checks. But this individual premeditated this entire thing, obviously, and shot these innocent people from outside through the windows that were venting some of the warm air inside the building. What I understand, he shot through those openings of the windows.
All right, so he didn't have to actually penetrate the stained glass of the windows,
No.
which can be thick. The windows were cracked open to allow some air inside the church, and he shot through the crack of the window, is what your understanding is.
Yeah, as I understand, those windows actually fold, so they're not horizontal going up and down, as you might visualize. They actually fold out open, if you can kind of picture that. And I understand he shot through where there was an opening in the windows.
Yeah, your daughter went there. You've gone to mass there for 2 decades. Tell me about Annunciation. Why is it special?
Well, it's a very welcoming church. This is actually, I would describe a middle upper class part of town. Very friendly people. Obviously, nothing ever like anything remotely close to this ever happening. This is a very parent-oriented church. Parents are very invested in the school and obviously the children going there. And if anybody knows anything about parochial Catholic schools, they're welcoming to all faiths, not just Catholics. So, it's a very stable, wholesome place to have your children.
All right, Phil Bieneman, thank you so much. I really appreciate you hopping on the phone and joining us. And as we were speaking, I've just got a statement from the Church of the Annunciation saying, this morning, a gunman began shooting into our church from outside during Mass. You need to know that within seconds, our heroic staff moved students under the pews. Law enforcement responded quickly. Tragically, we lost 2 of our beloved students. As we process and navigate this unfathomable time together, we will be in touch this weekend regarding when school will resume. So that statement just now from the Church of the Annunciation, asking also to please lift up these families and these children in prayer. All right, we'll continue with our breaking news coverage in Minneapolis. The FBI is investigating the shooting, obviously, as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime. After the break, we'll speak to 2 guests who can give us an inside look at how these investigations are conducted. They'll tell us what's going on as we speak tonight. All right, welcome back to our breaking news coverage of this shooting in Minneapolis at a church, a school, happening early this morning. As we go on the air right now, there is a vigil that is about to happen in about half an hour. Long line of people already waiting to get into that, or some people already inside. This is happening about 2 miles away from the school, the Church of the Annunciation, where the shooting happened today. This is long line of people is waiting to get into the Academy of Holy Angels, another Catholic church about 2 miles away. So that deadly shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School claimed the lives of 2 children this morning. Tonight, police say that 4 search warrants are being executed, one at the school's church, which is where the shooting took place during morning mass. 3 other locations around Minneapolis are also being searched. Police say they've already recovered more firearms in those locations. They say the suspect is 23-year-old Robin Westman, who used 3 different firearms to shoot through the church windows, killing 2 kids and injuring 17 others. The wounded include 14 children and 3 adults, all of whom were in their 80s. The injured are all expected to survive. Westman, meanwhile, is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We are also seeing some disturbing images that police say the gunman posted online before committing this heinous act. Images from a manifesto that police say has now been taken down. Pictures of ammunition, chilling messages written on rifle magazines with phrases like "Kill Donald Trump," "For the children," and "Where is your God?" And there are pictures of the manifesto itself with its haunting words. Now, police are reviewing all of this material, going through it, trying to unearth the motive for this ghastly act. Joining us now with more is Joe Cardinale, former lieutenant commander with the New York City Police Department and NewsNation law and justice contributor, and former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. Joe, take us through what police are doing right now. We're in the hours after the shooting, but we have so much information already, once again, thanks to social media and these incredibly disturbing manifestos.
Well, right now, Elizabeth, they're going through everything, all his social media posts, anybody he's been in contact with, anybody that could have put up the red flag for law enforcement to say that this person, was displaying signs or, just making hate speech on the internet. It should have been picked up if it were hate speech, and that's what law enforcement fights for all the time. But if he's a loner, that's another case. But somewhere along the line, somebody has to know about this person. Somebody has to have had conversation with this person, and they're going to put a rhyme or reason to it the best way they can. So rest assured, they have to see if anybody else is tied in with this. That's why they keep treating it like it is an active crime scene for anything moving forward of anybody that might have participated with just aiding and abetting him through speech. Saying this is the way,
or by not saying anything. I mean, listen, all these writings we're seeing are vile. And I've just touched on, a small percentage of it. We're also working to verify it, but it's coming out. And Jennifer, it's not just, it's taunting, it's threatening. There are anti-Semitic posts. He talks about, there's in one place he's written 6 million wasn't enough, which appears to be an allusion to the 6 million Jews who were killed in the Holocaust. When he says, ha ha, they're taunting these messages. This is an angry person.
Yes, Elizabeth. And I would say really law enforcement needs to look no further than these messages that were sent and that were posted. I've read them all, and they are nasty. They are full of hate. They absolutely outline what he was going to do, why he did it, his hate for mankind, for Catholicism, for Judaism, for Christianity, for people as a whole. And it's clear to me he just wanted to aggrandize himself with this last act before he took his life.
And Jennifer, obviously there's a personal connection reportedly to this church and school. He reportedly went there from pre-K through 8th grade. His mother reportedly worked there.
Yes, that's exactly right. And from the beginning, when you saw what he did, how he knew exactly where to go, that mass would be in session. Then, listen, my son goes to Catholic school, and that mass changes all the time. He knew the inner workings, where people would be, where his prey would be. And Elizabeth, he locked that door and put barricades in so they couldn't get out.
Joe, what about the fact that police say he bought all 3 of the guns that he used this morning legally and recently? And we're now getting word that they have found even more guns as they execute these other search warrants. And we've seen video that the gunman posted of himself with all this ammunition. He was heavily, heavily armed.
Yeah, and once again, it goes back to who does he live with? I mean, does he live with his mother? Does he live with somebody that should have picked this up and should have said, there's something going on here? Because sometimes, the person that they will go to is his mother worked in that school as well, from what I understand. And people that have to
She used to work.
Used to, exactly. So he was very familiar with that, with the scenario of that school. And, he picked a time where he knew he had them captive in that church. He could have easily stayed outside if he wanted to and picked them off as they walked across the street. But no, he chose to go in there and pick them off right through the window. Like, for the coward that he is, the subhuman that he is, to do something like this during the holiest time for these kids that are praying in church.
Yeah.
All right. And it's disgusting, but this always happens. Somebody's going to come out and say, oh, I always knew this one was like this. I always knew that one was like this. And then it comes out a little too late after they already did the damage.
Yeah. Joe Cardinale, Jennifer Coffindaffer, anybody who saw one scintilla of what has already become public would know this was a deeply disturbed individual who somebody needed to call authorities immediately. Terrible, terrible story. Really appreciate you both coming in and weighing in with your expertise tonight. Coming up for us, the White House, of course, is reacting to that message, "Kill Donald Trump." It was written on the rifle magazine of the gunman. Is the president at risk of yet another assassination attempt, or is this just crazy, demented rambling? We're going to get a live update from the White House. All right, police and FBI agents are fanning out across Minneapolis tonight, executing search warrants and trying to get an answer to the question of why this horrible, horrific shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis happened this morning. We obviously have disturbing messages from the suspect, who had published a manifesto, left one behind, had weapons and with writing on them. We showed you the images at the top of the show and just a few moments ago. One of those messages actually targeted the president. Written on a rifle magazine were the words, "Kill Donald Trump." NewsNation's Kelly Myers live for us now, live at the White House. Kelly, we've had people take shots at this president when he was running for office. This is not, an unusual, sadly, it's a terrible thing that's already happened. What is the White House, what's the reaction there tonight to these words on this weapon and on this ammunition?
Yeah, not something you can take lightly, especially with what has happened over the last year, those 2 assassination attempts. We've asked White House officials for comment on this. So far, we haven't heard from the White House or the president himself. They mentioned there might be something coming, and they kind of looked to the president and potentially to his Truth Social, which I keep refreshing. He just left the West Wing, actually, just before we came on air with you, Elizabeth. So he just wrapped up in the Oval Office, so we may hear from him with some reaction to this. But we do know we have heard from him throughout the day in the term of he was fully briefed on this. He said we know a senior White House official tells us that his Attorney General Pam Bondi was here with him, as well as the Vice President. And we know that Governor Walz said that those folks were there on the phone when President Trump called him to send his condolences and also express his support. I wanted to play a bit from the governor, and then we could talk more about what the president is saying as well on the other side.
But what happened here today will not be gone. Minnesotans will not step away. We'll stand with this community. We'll redouble ourselves to do the best we can to understand what we can do to prevent any parent from having to receive the calls they received today.
And another action the president took today was lowering the flags here at the White House and across the country, ordering them to be lowered to half staff. through sunset on August 31st for those victims and their families. Elizabeth.
Yeah, no, very notable that he called Governor Walz this morning and offered his full support and condolences as well. And as we said, FBI agents on the ground. Kelly Meyer, as we look at the flag flying at half-staff in remembrance for those 2 children shot down in church this morning. Coming up, we continue our breaking news coverage. Chris Cuomo joins me next. We'll get his take. All right, because of the breaking news today, we had to postpone our 2-part NewsNation investigation. We will, however, air our exclusive series, What Were They Doing in St. Louis? That'll be tomorrow night and Friday night right here on Elizabeth Vargas Reports. It's a fantastic investigation. You don't want to miss it. All right, Chris Cuomo joins me now. Chris, it's just really, I don't know about you, and I are both Catholic. We both went to, Catholic schools and Catholic churches all of our lives. This is a really tough one today.
For us, yeah. For the families, the kids, the community, yeah, they're part of this crazy fraternity that is exclusively American. But you think we're talking about it on Monday?
I hope so. I don't know. And by the way, while we were coming on the air, another 2 or 3 colleges got more, swatting active shooter alerts. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm actually dealing with that a little bit tonight. I have to tell you, here's the truth, okay?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go all in on the story tonight. There was a time when I used to go to all of them and report back to you at GMA or 2020 or wherever we were working together at the time. I went to all of them. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how many people would have to die for you and I to be on the scene. And I wasn't even going to cover it that much tonight. And Mike, our boss, Mike Korn, was like, come on, you see what's happening here? You got to care. And he's right, of course. But is there a larger question that we are refusing to answer in our society? And I think the answer is yes. And I'm going to spell it out tonight, and we'll take it from there. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.